You think you're fueling your body for a productive day. But for most people, breakfast isn't fuel. It's the first metabolic mistake of the day. And it happens before you've even left the kitchen. Common morning routines, the cereal, the coffee before food, the rush to your desk, are triggering blood sugar spikes and stress responses that quietly chip away at your insulin sensitivity, your energy, and your ability to burn fat for the rest of the day. In the next 12 minutes, we're deconstructing 7 of these habits, one at a time, and showing you exactly what's happening inside your body when you do them, plus the science-backed way to fix your morning without overhauling your entire life. The biological conflict. What if your first cup of coffee, on an empty stomach, is working against you before you've had a single bite of food? Caffeinating before eating and reaching for processed grains first thing are 2 of the most common morning habits. And together, they can set off a chain reaction that most people never connect back to their breakfast. We're going to walk through that chain reaction step by step, so you can see exactly where it starts, the problem and the solution. Here's the good news. None of this requires a drastic diet change. It requires understanding what your body is actually doing in that first hour after waking, and making a few strategic swaps. By the end of this video, you'll know the 7 habits working against your metabolism, and the simple 3-step morning sequence that can help restore your energy and insulin sensitivity. Starting tomorrow. Let's get into it. The high-stakes glucose roller coaster. Habit number 1. Starting the day with a high-sugar, low-protein breakfast. A typical modern breakfast cereal, a pastry, juice, or even healthy granola is often mostly refined carbohydrate with very little protein, fat, or fiber to slow it down. When you eat that combination, glucose floods into your bloodstream quickly, and your pancreas has to release a large burst of insulin to manage it. That's the spike. And what goes up sharply tends to come down sharply too. Habit number 2. Not anticipating the 90-minute crash. About 60 to 90 minutes after a high glucose breakfast, many people experience a rebound. Blood sugar drops, sometimes below where it started. This is commonly linked to that brain fog, irritability, and sudden hunger that shows up mid-morning, the kind that sends you looking for a snack an hour before lunch. The problem isn't just that dip itself. It's what it teaches your body to expect. A pattern of sharp spikes followed by sharp crashes, repeated daily, is associated over time with declining insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells become less responsive to insulin signal, and your body has to work harder to manage the same amount of glucose. Habit number 3. Setting the metabolic tone for the whole day. Here's the part most people miss. Your first meal doesn't just affect the next hour. It can influence how your body handles food for the rest of the day. This is sometimes called the second meal effect. A high-spike breakfast can make your blood sugar response to lunch and dinner less stable too, essentially setting a volatile tone that follows you for the next 24 hours. Starting your day already asking your pancreas to work overtime doesn't just cost you the morning. It can quietly stack the deck against fat burning and steady energy well into the evening. The cortisol and caffeine collision. Habit number 4. Drinking coffee before eating and before your natural cortisol peak. Your body naturally produces its highest levels of cortisol, a stress hormone, in the first 30 to 45 minutes after waking. This is a normal, healthy part of your circadian rhythm. It's part of what helps you feel alert in the morning. The problem is what happens when you add caffeine on top of that peak, on an empty stomach. Caffeine itself triggers a stress response, prompting the adrenal glands to release more cortisol and adrenaline. When that stacks on top of your body's already elevated natural cortisol, and there's no food in your system to buffer it, you're compounding a stress signal rather than easing into the day. How this triggers glucose release without eating. Here's the mechanism. Cortisol and adrenaline signal the liver to release some of its stored glucose, called glycogen, into the bloodstream. A survival response designed to give you quick energy in a fight or flight situation. That means your blood sugar can rise even before you've eaten anything, simply from the stress of caffeine hitting an already primed system. Habit number 5. The long-term cost of a stress-flooded morning. Do this once, and it's not a big deal. Your body is built to handle occasional stress responses. Do it every single morning for months or years, and the repeated flooding of stress hormones and glucose during that first hour of waking is associated with greater insulin resistance over time. Your cells, constantly exposed to elevated glucose and stress signals, can become progressively less sensitive to insulin's message. The fix isn't necessarily quitting coffee, it's sequencing. Having something in your stomach, even something small, before or alongside that first cup can blunt this cortisol-caffeine collision considerably. Deconstructing the convenience food trap. Habit number 6. Health food that behaves like dessert. Walk down a grocery aisle and you'll see breakfast cereals and granola bars marketed with words like whole grain, fortified, and low fat. Many of these products are, metabolically speaking, closer to dessert than to a stabilizing meal. They're often high in refined carbohydrates and added sugar, low in fiber and protein, and digested quickly, producing the same kind of glucose spike we covered in Section 1, just wearing a health food costume. This matters because these are exactly the products people reach for when they're trying to eat better in the morning, meaning the spike and crash cycle often continues even after someone has consciously tried to improve their diet. Hidden inflammatory oils in quick grab morning snacks. Beyond sugar, many packaged breakfast and snack items, granola bars, muffins, pastries, are made with refined seed oils that are prone to oxidation, especially after sitting on a shelf for weeks. There's ongoing scientific discussion about how a diet heavy in these oils, combined with a lack of dietary antioxidants, may contribute to low-grade inflammation and cellular stress over time, an area of active nutrition research. It's not about fear of any single ingredient. It's about recognizing how grab-and-go convenience often trades long-term cellular health for short-term ease. Convenience versus what your mitochondria actually need. Your mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside your cells, run most efficiently on a steady supply of fuel, quality protein, healthy fats, and fiber-rich carbohydrates that release glucose slowly. A processed, high-sugar breakfast gives your cells a flood they can't use efficiently all at once, followed by a shortage. A protein and fiber-forward breakfast gives them a steady drip they can actually convert into usable, lasting energy. Habit number 7. Sitting down immediately after eating. Here's a habit that has nothing to do with what you eat and everything to do with what you do right after. When you eat and then immediately sit, at a desk, in a car, on a couch, your muscles, which are one of the biggest consumers of blood glucose, stay inactive. That means insulin has to do nearly all the work of clearing glucose from your bloodstream on its own. Why movement after eating matters so much? When your muscles contract, even during light walking, they can pull glucose out of the bloodstream through a pathway that doesn't require much insulin at all. This is sometimes referred to as insulin-independent glucose uptake. In practical terms, a short walk after eating can help blunt a glucose spike without your pancreas having to work as hard. Some research points to the first 1,000 steps or so after a meal, even a 10-minute walk, as enough to meaningfully activate this process. You don't need a workout. You need movement. The afternoon cost of a sedentary morning. Skip that movement consistently, and it's not just that single post-meal spike that suffers. A sedentary morning pattern, repeated daily, has been associated with a slower resting metabolic rate that can persist into the afternoon, meaning the sit right after eating habit doesn't just cost you 20 minutes. It can quietly shape your energy and metabolic efficiency for hours afterward. The metabolic recalibration strategy. Now that we've covered what's working against you, let's talk about what actually works. Strategy number 1. Shift toward a savory, protein-first breakfast. Prioritizing protein and healthy fats in the morning. Eggs, Greek yogurt, avocado, nuts, tends to produce a much flatter, more stable blood sugar response than a carbohydrate-heavy breakfast. Protein and fat both slow gastric emptying, meaning your food digests more gradually, and your energy tends to stay steadier for 4 to 6 hours, rather than spiking and crashing within 90 minutes. Strategy number 2. Sequence your meal, fiber and protein first. If your breakfast does include carbohydrates, toast, oats, fruit, the order you eat them matters. Eating fiber and protein first, and carbohydrates last, can act as a buffer. The fiber slows digestion, and the protein blunts the speed of the glucose response, so the same meal produces a noticeably gentler blood sugar curve then eating the carb-heavy component first or all together. Strategy number 3. Build a simple 3-step morning sequence. Here's a straightforward sequence to work toward, not a rigid rulebook. Have something in your stomach before or alongside your first coffee, even a small protein-containing bite, to soften that cortisol-caffeine collision. Build your breakfast around protein, fat, and fiber first, treating refined carbohydrates as the smallest part of the plate rather than the centerpiece. Move for 10 minutes after eating. A walk, stretching, light housework to help your muscles clear glucose without over-relying on insulin. None of these steps require special products or a total lifestyle overhaul. They're about sequencing and awareness, working with your biology in that first hour instead of against it. Let's run through the 7 habits one more time. Starting the day with a high-sugar, low-protein breakfast, not anticipating the 90-minute glucose crash, letting that spike set the metabolic tone for the rest of the day. Drinking coffee before eating, on top of your natural cortisol peak, repeating that stress caffeine collision day after day. Reaching for health food that behaves like dessert, sitting down immediately after eating instead of moving. None of these are about guilt. They're about awareness, recognizing which small, repeated choices are quietly shaping your energy, your mood, and your long-term metabolic health. You don't need to fix all 7 tomorrow. Pick one. Maybe it's moving your coffee to after a small bite of food, or taking a 10-minute walk after breakfast, and build from there. If this video helped you rethink your morning, share it with someone who always skips breakfast or lives on coffee alone. Subscribe for more evidence-based breakdowns of the everyday habits quietly shaping your health, and drop a comment with which of these 7 surprised you the most.